How's it going, everybody? This is Trey Bell, and this is Arcane Frequencies. Now, today we're going to be reviewing the album Swastikas For Noddy by Current 93. Now, this is only my second video, and from what you saw from my other video from the first Current 93 review, I'm going to just be going through the aspects of the catalog of Current 93 that I've gotten to, that I've listened to, and pretty much just use this bulk of their material that I was able to listen to, because they have a lot of material. I'm just gonna break all their material down in sections. So the first section is gonna be pretty much me going through the ones that I've already heard, and then once I got through that, probably take a break on reviewing the band for a little bit, then switch to another band and kind of do the same thing with that band. My goal is to kind of get through my 5 top favorite artists, bands technically, which would be Death Grips, but I'm gonna save that for last, and then Coco Rosie, Current 93, Animal Collective, and the Beatles. Start with the introduction. I pretty much got into this album the same time I got into Current 93 in general. So this album was somewhat encompassed within my culture shock knowledge of how much shit that they actually have in their discographies. I think this was the first album where I'm hearing a different sound from them. This is when they start transitioning to a more neo-folk sound and kind of stray away from their ambient, dark, nasty, esoteric, drony music that you hear on Dog Blood Rising and or Nature Unveil, and anything that encompasses that, because I know there's a bunch of albums that I haven't properly listened to that aren't on Spotify, so I need to actually kind of search a little bit harder to take a good dive into them. I think Imperium's another dark ambient Current 93 album that it's kind of hard to find it. I think it's on YouTube, but it's fragmented. Yeah, when I first heard this album, the first thing I took note of was, well, yeah, this is definitely a style change, and this is definitely less abrasive, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it's still a strange album, and still very, it's definitely culty, not just a cult, but really culty. I feel like that's what the theme of this whole entire album is cult leaders, a lot of nods toward Charles Manson's case, because there's literally a song on here called Beausoleil, which is based off of one of the Charles Manson members, Bobby Beausoleil, who took part in the Tate LaBianca murders. It's a freakish album. Again, not as freakish as their earlier stuff, but I would definitely say this is the perfect in-between between their neo-folk stuff and their dark ambient stuff, because there's still a lot of just visceral subject matters that they're touching upon, but it's less in your face, and it's it's a little bit more inviting, but just in a more hey guys, come drink the Kool-Aid type of way. But yeah, this is a really culty album. If I were to not compare, but say what type of film is equivalent to this album, it'd probably be the film Midsummer, because there's a lot of talk about the May rain shit and a bunch of just all that weird Netherland type of Celtic pagan reality that I feel a lot of them were living in that movie. And it's interesting how David Tibet and company are able to, transition their sound to fit that, aesthetic, which was also something that was very interesting for me to figure out when it came to a lot of industrial music, and how a lot of these artists pretty much went from making crazy, chaotic, just, noise, experimental music, to just making it somewhat more accessible, not fully, but enough where you're getting a different picture of the visceralness of their sound, but it's just it's a little bit more inviting. Also feels like you're getting sucked into this cult-like mentality, I guess. But yeah, this is a very culty album, and I like it. I really enjoy culty stuff. It just, I don't know, just aesthetically it pleases me. Don't join cults. Don't start cults. For me, I just really think the aesthetic of cults are very intriguing, and because honestly, I feel like a lot of religion in general can have cult-like mentalities, because it's pretty much people wanting to follow or attach themselves to a concept, especially if like they don't really know how to hold on to anything. And I feel like most of the world is like that, and like I feel like the term cult really isn't always like a bad, it doesn't really need to be a bad term all the time, because like it's obviously just a shortening of the word culture. So just I guess read between the lines of like where a word kind of probably stemmed from, but unfortunately ended up at. So but but that's kind of a brief overview of how I got into this specific album. I already kind of, it's just encompassed within my whole entire discovery of Current 93 as a whole, and I already explained a lot about that in the first video, so I just kind of want to get straight to the review, and let's go. So for the beginning of this album, I'm kind of like gonna like condense it down all in bulk, because the first 3 songs are actually not really that long of songs, which is also another interesting change within like that's specific with this album. There's less songs on here that are past the 10-minute mark. Actually, I don't think any song is past the 10-minute mark other than the song Beau Soleil. Actually, no, that's 8 minutes, but I think it's the only longest song on here. So they still do the long song structure within it, but this is definitely more of a traditional album than Dog Blood Rises was. I think it ranges from 17 songs, 48 minutes, and 32 seconds, and came out 1988, December 31st. So late 80s, Current 93, and knowing that a lot of their original like dark stuff was more in the early 80s, I would say like within the middle of the 80s is when they probably started making their transition into the neo-folk sound. So with that said, first 3 songs are called Benediction, Blessing, and North. Now the only reason I'm putting all these 3 songs together is because they're really short songs. It's not really much to them. They're more just like this weird intro type of deal. Again, like a lot of these albums I feel like Current 93 makes is they kind of like work in acts and plays in a certain way. So I feel like this is the first act where it's just there's no instrumentals. It's just their pure raw vocals. And with Benediction, a lot of pretty much what the lyrics are is, now cursed be thee that would ruin our fair land, and cursed be thee that would seal up the wells, and cursed be thee that's abandoned the God's hands. That abandoned the God's lands and built a strange place for our people to dwell. Well, first of all, it's definitely another aspect of David Tibet showing his Christianity and how close-knit he really is with it. As much as like there is a lot of cult themes in Current 93's music, David Tibet, I would definitely say, stands out from all of like his contemporaries in the sense that he does embrace Christianity a little bit more than, say, probably Genesis P-Orage and or Nurse with Wound. He really does talk about like aspects of the Bible and like a lot of biblical topics a lot. They're just intermingled with like the dark aspects of them, which kind of makes me realize that like he's not really trying to convey to you this dark ideation. It's just kind of just telling you what it is, and that's what I really appreciate about David Tibet. I feel like he's just a purist in how he wants to project himself. And so yeah, that pretty much I feel like is just talking about like we've abandoned God's ways. Pretty much like our world has been left in a strange place to dwell, which it's pretty tongue in cheek. Like yeah, like we've deviated from like what God intended us to be like, and we're left with like a lot of confusion. And I feel like those are like a lot of like traditional like statements that you hear within Christianity, and depending on how I know people feel certain types of ways about that subject matter, but at the end of the day I do feel like even people who aren't, a lot of people even during these hard times, these COVID times, a lot of I do feel like a lot of people have who aren't even Christian have also been telling me like, yeah, bro, like these are very biblical times. So if people who aren't even Christian are telling me that, it shows that like, yeah, we messed up somewhere as humans. And let's see some of these other lyrics. Not cursed be thy name, all cursed and forgotten, all cursed beyond memory, place and recall, and cursed be thy soul, out of nothing begotten, a thing to no thing, and nothing to all. Now, I really like those lyrics. Again, today was the first day I actually took a look at them, like, analytically, and was just like, yeah, these definitely are touching upon, like, definitely an aspect of nihilism, but definitely in a more food for thought type of way, where it's like the part that really resonated with me is when he said, out of nothing begotten, a thing to no thing, and nothing to all. It's like we're trying to be something for stuff that really, doesn't matter, or it's not going to be important in the future, because I do feel like this is definitely touching on like some very philosophical points of views that definitely I would say you can coincide with Buddhism, because I know he takes a lot of influence from like Buddhist belief systems, because they can be very intermingled with a lot of orthodox and hermetic teachings. But we got the gist of that. On to the next song. Well, really, Blessing is really not anything other than this woman kind of singing in this hymn-like way. There aren't even lyrics for it. I think she sounds like she's singing in a different language, but it doesn't really, she seems like she's singing anything specific. It's just kind of a tone setter. So again, first three songs, not really much going on other than like kind of just setting a mood for what this album is going to be like. And then the third song, North, from the north I call thee forth, O mighty Odin. And this is another song where it's just like some lady singing in a very orchestral type of way. Honestly, like the way I look at it is like, she's like in a field of like grass, like a grassy plain, kind of something we see like in Midsummer, and like, wearing a long white draped cloth and singing this like to a group of like other midsummer-esque women or just some type of shit that are living in that commune. That's kind of what the vibe of this is. But from the north I call thee forth, O mighty Odin, Lord of the spears, fettered by fear, curse all those who do oppose our fight. Victory is near. And I do feel like this is like a good tone setter in the sense of like it's definitely trying to express ideas of like trying to accomplish this goal. Now what that goal is, I don't know. But there's not really a lot to take from these lyrics. I need to figure out what Odin means. I think that's like a North god or something like that. But yeah, again, it's probably not necessary to overtly analyze these lyrics. They're like this tone setter for whatever. Hey, Grandma.
Hey, what you doing?
Recording a YouTube video. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Hit the spot that ground. It was nippy out here too. I didn't know it was so nippy.
Yep.
You out here no backyard?
I'm good.
You good? All right. Ain't gonna disturb you.
All right, good. Don't worry, I can edit this out. I might leave it in.
Huh?
I might leave it in actually. They'd be like, "Hey, what's good, Grandma?" It's my grandma over there. Well, okay. Now that we get to the fourth song, it's called Black Sun, Bloody Moon. Now, actually, now that I think about it, this is the fourth song. Also, kind of seems like it's just a slight introduction of like what the album is gonna be. Like this is like an experience album, so I feel like from like as the songs continue, like this is the first act of what's gonna be the fifth song, which is Coal Blacksmith. So, because honestly, like when I first started listening to this album, I was always confused on like if this was its own song or if this was also connected to Cole Blacksmith because they kind of contextually sound alike. So I do just feel like Black Sun Bloody Moon is just the first part of what the next song Cole Blacksmith would be. So a few lyrics from this particular song. It says, "The sun turns black, earth sinks into sea. From the steadings in heaven, the bright stars turn. Fire and reek burrow upwards and break with hazy heat against heaven itself." Yeah. Daughters and son incestuously mix. Man is plaything of mighty whoredoms. An axe time, a sword time, shields shall be split. And what is something we're blooding? We're blooding? What? Beneath our feet. And what if something were breeding beneath our feet? I'll be honest, sometimes like I don't know when to take David Tibet's lyrics seriously because there's so many different words in here that are talking about some pretty out there subject matters, but at the same time, like I do feel like his music still is like a little bit childish, so sometimes I don't know if I'm gonna be wasting my time trying to overtly analyze these lyrics. For the most part, I feel like he just wants you to interpret the lyrics in the way that you want, because he definitely does a more stream of conscious type of writing, which I can tell because I do similar things with my music. But I don't know, it's just, if anything, like from what I can gather, now that I can put two and two together, the whole daughters and sons incestuously mix. Like, again, to kind of go back to the movie Midsummer, yeah, that was a crazy movie. Actually, I watched it with my grandma, and she she thought it was crazy. What, didn't you, Grandma?
Yo, did.
Oh, tell the people your experience. No, you don't. They're not gonna see you.
Horrible. Horrible movie. I asked him, I say, "You all right?"
I really like the movie Midsummer. I could tell my grandma was concerned. I'm like, wow, I like this movie so much.
It's that cult movie with him.
Yeah, the cult. Yeah, it's the movie with like they go to yeah, they go to like the Netherlands or something, or Sweden.
I like that movie wrong. That's a crazy movie.
It's disturbing, but it's like it's still a horror movie. Like it's considered a horror movie. It's just like it's just.
Did I finish that one on
Yeah, you watched all of it. It's just the whole entire time I was just feeling like, dang, I feel judged because I like this movie.
I just, hey, couldn't relate to that.
I don't know. I like weird.
Maybe a whole different generation.
I mean, Grandma, you're the reason why I like weird stuff like that. Like Children of the Corn, like that was like one of my favorite movies growing up.
That was good.
I mean, yeah, it is good, but like it's still a cult movie. Like it still is a cult movie, so like it's just like it was just a different time period. I mean, if anything, Midsummer actually was more of a. It was more related to like The Wicker Man.
I watched that one. That was a crazy movie too.
Yeah. Either way, my grandma just doesn't like cult movies, which is cool. They're very particular, so I don't blame her.
No, I just say, I can't see how people's mind could be that we fall for that stuff,
But that's why it's a good movie, because because it's reality. I think that's like why I like it, because like that's an actual reality of like how people, because a lot of people are weak-minded and fall into cults. So, like, I don't know. I just kind of found like that interesting because it represents like what people are like today.
Other people, they didn't know that what they was going into. It was just one guy. He kind of like really. He kind of like to me like lied to them. They didn't know all that was going on.
Oh yeah.
It was like that, He really manipulate them.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's how cults work. Like they try to. I mean, it's like, like the whole Jim Jones like thing. Like it's just like, because they're like trying to start a church or like a community, and it's supposed to be nice at first, and then you realize Fortunately, my video had froze. Don't know why. It did that last time, and I had to merge them properly, but this time I couldn't because I was definitely like in the depths of a conversation with my grandma. But yeah, little side review of the movie Midsummer. But yeah, so but back to what I was talking about. Like yeah, like even like what we were talking about. Like yeah, this definitely was the album from for me with Current 93 that kind of solidified like what subject matters they were really into and when I first discovered them. And yeah, like the whole conversation about cults, like yeah, I do feel like this really is depicting that mentality, but just more on an aesthetic level. What's the point or what it's trying to prove? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think they're just literally making a artistic expression of what a cult like mentality really is. And that is what I'm getting from most of these songs. And then like as we continue, you know, the old cold blacksmith. Like in the one thing I like about this is actually my favorite song off the album, along with Beausoleil. But this definitely is a very interesting song where it sounds very like old, like it's like a relic from a different time period, and just the way that it seems like it feels like they're like holding hands, going in a circle around a fire, just going around in a circle of some sort, kind of just doing like this very weird chanty-esque like she actually I'll read the lyrics. Oh, she looked out into the window, as white as any milk. But he looked in the window, as black as any silk. Hello, 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 ye cold blacksmith. Oh, what is your silly song? Should have never changed my maiden name that I have kept so long. I'd rather die a maid, yes. And then she said, and be buried all in my grave, yes. And then she said that I'd have such a nasty, husky dusky musty, fusty, fusty. Cold blacksmith. Again, I really do not know what the fuck a cold blacksmith is. I don't know what exactly he's talking about. Just a lot of metaphors, and I don't know, it's just there's even parts where he says like people becoming ducks and people becoming water dogs. I'm like, what does that mean? Again, like this is like I said, this is a less dark album, but I would have to say I'm probably more confused by this album than I was with Dog's Blood Rising. Mainly because with Dog's Blood Rising, I knew exactly what I was into. It was just more like, you know, just right in your face, dark experience. But this is just very surreal, like really surreal poetry. But I like it. I like it a lot. But yeah, overall, I feel like a lot of the music on here is just really aimed towards like expressing nonsensicalness. Like there probably is like meaning or sense to like what they're talking about, and I'm just not knowledgeable of like the subject matters. But again, it still is obvious that David Tibet is still trying to express himself in like a very childlike manner, because most of his music still has elements of like very very childlike essence. Like even even the fact that because this album's called Swastikas For Noddy, and that Noddy is actually based off of like a UK like old cartoon character that's like, you know, that was like for children's books at the time period or something. I think it still exists, like it's just remodified, but like it's been around for like I think almost decades at this point, like almost 100 years, like one of those old like cartoons, probably in the same time period as like the Yellow Boy or something like that. But yeah, and that's another thing about this album, even like when it came to like figuring out about it, it's just like his obsession with this cartoon character shows that he really is tied to a lot of like his innocence and intermingling it with the darkness of the world, and like but still trying to have that light aspect. I feel like shows like what sets Current 93 a little bit different than some of the other bands of the same area. It's like he's having a little bit more fun with it. And as we continue, so we have songs like Black Flowers, Please. And this is one of those other songs where it's not David speaking, it's just like these random women that he has like singing simultaneously. Oh, when I saw you standing there, wildflowers dying in your hair, child of harvest, I'm coughing up must. Black flowers do perfume trailing in dust. Like you get the gist of it. Yeah, it's just I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm just beating a dog at this point, trying to like analyze these lyrics. Overall, this album to me is just more just intertwined with like trying to make this aesthetic for this new transition and like their stylistic changes, because a lot of neo folk music and folk music in general is pretty, there's a pretty repetitive aspect of it. I feel like once you heard it once, like I wouldn't necessarily heard it all, but it's just like, it's just kind of a staple that, you're going to hear a lot of the same types of, acoustic pluckings and, very minimal instrumentation, which is also an interesting aspect when it comes to this style of current 93's music, because they're literally kind of evoking even more uncomfortable emotions, but was stripping back all the drony elements that was present in their earlier music. And yeah, it's just Swastikas For Noddy, like that. This is definitely an album I would probably want to show someone who is definitely interested in finding weird music, and because it's just a good middle ground between their dark stuff and their neo folk stuff. And there's still some pretty vapid subject matters, like again, just cult leaders, Charles Manson, Bobby Beausoleil, and anything of that orientation. And also, to kind of just skip ahead, because I feel like I have pretty much said exactly what I want to say about this album without repeating myself all the time. Just to kind of get to my main favorite song is Beausoleil. Now, this is the highlight for me when it comes to this type of music. Like, this is my anthem. When I think of neo folk, I think of this song. And because the constant refrain of saying Beausoleil, Sally, 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 Beausoleil, Beausoleil, doom, Beausoleil. And it's like, and also like to talk about the sonic aspect of this song, and a lot of aspects of like the music off of this album, just like how vintage that they were able to make some of the recordings, how they weave certain stuff in together. Like the sampling is good, especially because just like them sampling Beausoleil in that way, it kind of just is it keeps the whole entire song together, while David is just kind of making these intense refrains of saying, reaping nirvana in a desert land, Beausoleil, Beausoleil, thy anger rising like a scorpion. And actually, to kind of put my nerd knowledge on, I'm pretty sure when he says thine anger rising like a scorpion, he's most likely talking about the avant-garde filmmaker who's also really deep into the cult, Kenneth Anger. A lot of his movies from the 60s and before then, like, they were primarily like, well, not silent movies, but you didn't really hear a lot of voices in his movies. And the one song he's specifically talking about is Lucifer Rising. And then there's also another one called Scorpio Rising. And it's just like his collage of all these weird esoteric imagery. And I do feel like, again, to kind of tie back the occult into all of this, yeah, I feel like him referencing Kenneth Anger kind of gives, another interesting perspective of like where they were at this time period and making this type of music and what inspirations lies in this, because I do feel like the way that they weave this album together is kind of also similar to the way that Kenneth Anger does his movies. And it's, it's very, it's very artsy, it's very visual, it's more contextual, and like that's what I feel like from, most of Current 93's lyrics in general. That's like why I'm like, I feel like it just would just be unnecessary just to literally dive into every single aspects to the lyrics. But the ones that stick out to me the most is like just, kill, kill, killy, kill, and it's just like, what the hell? And it's just like this, like, it's just funny. Like there are aspects of this that are just hilarious. It's just like, man, these are some just obnoxious words and statements. Like, what is he trying to say? And also, I'm really confused because actually the other thing that really intrigues me about this song is like the beginning of it. You hear this weird old recording of someone talking about. You hear this old recording of someone talking about the Antichrist and how the Antichrist is gonna be a black man. So, of course, as a black man, I'm just, like, perked up my ears. I'm like, what? The Antichrist is a black man? I mean, one thing I can definitely fuck with when it comes to, like, them stating that is that, like, yeah, it's pretty... I feel like they're self-aware that, like, Jesus was most likely a person of color, so... And that's what, in the lyrics, they're saying. It's like, the Antichrist is going to be a dark-skinned black man. And then there's another lyric in here where he says, like, a black messiah in buckskin boots. Again, I don't know what the fuck that means. Like, what does that mean? A black like, you're talking about race, you're talking about buckskin boots. Not just any type of boots, buckskin boots. But, oh, man, it's just... Yeah, there's a lot of weird... I mean, I feel like that's an understatement at this point. Like, but... Yeah, it's just like... Again, to kind of just wrap everything up, because this song really is kind of the end of, like, where I feel like it's the highlight of what I really like about this album. And the last thing I want to touch on... No, it's not going to be the last thing. I keep lying. But I will try to make sure this gets cut down quick. But one thing I do know about a lot of these types of bands is that it is kind of confusing on like why they use a lot of anti-Semitic imagery in their music. It's because it is concerning. It is concerning. It was concerning when I first like was aware of it, and specifically like, other than this album with Current 93, it's definitely alluding to some strange like Nazism imagery, and the fact that it has the word swastika in it. Even like when I brought up like Douglas P. and Death in June is definitely one of those bands that's notorious for having a lot of like anti-Semitic imagery in their work and their aesthetic, which is gonna like be kind of awkward for me to like, because I do want to review their stuff, but I do know there is there are people that don't like them because of that, which is pretty understandable. But after watching an interview of Douglas P. and explaining himself, it seems like he just uses it as an aesthetic, which, that I can understand. But it's still, and also I think he is gay and he is Jewish, so obviously there's a lot of reasons for him, to seem like he probably isn't actually into Nazism, but it's kind of hard to tell that when, like, you really embrace that imagery, especially, like, when your last album was a fucking, statue of a Ku Klux Klan member, like, just in red drape. I'm just, like, that, and, like, that picture actually had to be taken off of Spotify, so that is a thing that I am gonna, like, just kind of out of, like, courtesy, just bring up and just, I'm gonna be real, like, a lot of this music is, kind of questionable sometimes in like what their imagery is about, and I don't want to like divert people away from this channel or just like in general, because like these are pretty touchy subject matters, and not, even though I don't fully understand like why they do this, I do kind of have an understanding that it's it's for aesthetic reasons. Now, how deep are they into that aesthetic? I'm not entirely sure. Again, a lot of this stuff was back in the '80s. Don't really think they even do that stuff like that anymore, other than Death in June. They still stick with like this weird Nazi imagery, which is oh man, just but that's what makes this music fun at the same time. Like, you kind of have it's just like it just makes me intrigued of like, how does a band, get how do we get how does human life like curate, just this type of strangeness that's hard to, you know, be concise about and, pinpoint. And maybe that's the point. They probably do that so you can't pinpoint them. That's why they probably use very controversial imagery, and if anything, it is probably just an aesthetic of being edgy. But again, they're also from Britain, and I don't understand. And honestly, I will never understand the UK's point of view of like Nazi Germany, and they probably have a different mentality about it than here over in the West. And not to excuse anyone who actually probably is trying to promote Nazism, but one thing is just like when it comes to my perspective of like those subject matters, like of course like America sees it as like one of the most horrible things that happened to the world, and most likely over in the UK they do too. They just probably go about it in like a more casual way, from my assumption. I don't know. It's just like just not like doing these. In my head, it just feels like it's kind of a fetish. It's weird, but you still want to do it. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what all this music kind of feels like. It's just like a weird fetish. But my Scarlet Woman, I really like that song a lot. Again, another one of those songs where it's just like bare vocals. It's a very short song, but all they're doing is saying, 1, 2, 3, 4, Scarlet Woman, we call a whore, rearing up on hooves of evening. And yeah, it's just this is like the thing is like there's just so many like hollow aspects of this album that it just feels like I'm just going from one door to the next of like experiences. Because like honestly, a lot of this music really can just be played in a loop. And then like just and then it gets to some stuff where it's like there's just a lot of like vocals on here that's just like spouting out very dark poetry. Like one where David's talking about, and when she fell down the stairs, I tried very hard not to laugh, gripping the banister, gripping my crutch. I tried hard not to go to her. I try hard not to go to her. There is something of heaven and death. There is something of heaven and death. This is like, what? And that's it. That's literally all it is. And then Angel, and this is a example of a Death in June song on a Current 93 album, where it's like, this shows like when they were actually working together. So all of this is David P's lyrics. So, well, hello, angel, a gift in a smile. Well, hello, angel, as we walk a mile. And twisted man leans. Hold up. And twisted man leans on twisted sticks with children's laughter hanging on swings. Well, hello, angel. And the skipping rope turns whilst little bodies twist in carousel curves. Well, hello, angel. At the end of your tether. Well, hello, angel. Time for sleep. Well, hello, angel. Time to cry. That which is falling should also be pushed. That which is crawling should also be crushed. Yeah. Like a lot of Death in June's work it's very simple. Like a lot of their music is really samey, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, with more like most neo-folk, a lot of, just the instruments that they use are like just sounds like acoustic guitars and stuff like that, or banjo-esque type of, string stuff. But with Death in June, they really just stick with just those elements. So a lot of the, most their music kind of feels more like a continuous vibe. And he usually just always speaks in this like interesting monotone type of fashion, which, I can definitely fuck with, and I definitely understand that type of mentality and like how you want to approach your music. But yeah, Death in June's music is it's and that's the thing. It's like Death and June's music is. It's not actually that weird. It's just their imagery is weird, and concerning too. Again, like I was saying, like their anti-Semitic imagery is like I'm confused on like why they even do it. But again, because like I look at these lyrics, I don't really get anti-Semiticness or even trying to even just talk about Nazi Germany in like a objective way. I'm pretty sure they do in some other songs because they also have a lot of projects, that probably will take a while to siphon through. But from the most part of what I know about the band, like Death in June, like the only Death in June song that like really is related to, I feel like the Holocaust is like the song called Rose Clouds of Holocaust, which was my first Death in the June song and definitely was one of my favorites. Like it's just favorite songs in general when it comes to like this style of music. Very catchy. But yeah. Then again, I don't know. At this point, like it's really hard to analyze this album in a sense because it feels like each song, even though like it's not as like long or like they don't all have songs that are past the 10-minute mark, it's kind of like it's like the vice versa effect where some of these songs are just like really short and just like there's just like this instance of like this very quick vibe for like 1 minute and then it goes to the next one and just like I think that's the one thing that's unique about this album is like the bareness of like how they structured everything, and a lot of the elements about this album are usually just chanting and making weird statements. And I think even at some of them, like he's like doing some weird curses, like an Albert Mellum, Aleister Crowley curse, and like it's just like talking a different language or something. Like it's actually kind of scary. Like I would definitely say towards the end, it winds down. But even though this isn't the last song, I do feel like it feels like it should be the last song for this album. But it's called Since Yesterday, and I really like these lyrics. It's mainly because like I feel like in a sense it's David pretty much telling you to enjoy the moment, because just close your eyes and then remember the thoughts you locked away. When tomorrow comes, you'll wish you had today. And as we sit here alone looking for a reason to go on, it's so clear that we have now our thoughts of yesterday. And pretty much he is saying like, yeah, like we live in the future, we live in the past, we are stuck we're always going to be stuck in the present, but our mind is going to be stuck in the past. But thinking about the past is what we're making our present. So it's a lot of weird psychological things to analyze. But for the most part, I feel like all he's saying is just to, one day you will eventually be gone, so you just should enjoy the moment. And with that said, that kind of wraps up like my analyzation and kind of just my experience with this album. Yeah, again, a little muddled a bit, I feel like, when it comes to talking about it, but again, this album was encompassed in the time period when I figured out about this band as a whole. So while I was listening to this album, I was also listening to like probably all their other stuff too, like all the Pretty Little Horsies and the Inmost Light and stuff like that, and just like I experienced all their music in bulk, and it took me a while to like appreciate their albums like individually. And actually, just for a cool thing, I actually have this album on vinyl. I will be right back. All right, now that I'm back, there it is. Let's take it out. Swastika For Noddy. I really like this album cover a lot. This dead, decomposed bird. So, get gander. And also, Another thing about this band that I also really appreciate is that on the back, this is actually the album cover for uh, Crooked Crosses for the Nodding God. So that album, this is a double album pretty much. So Crooked Crosses for a Nodding God is actually this album, but it's like a different version of it, like kind of like a B-side or just they just recorded it in a different way, and then like I guess like slightly different lyrics, and it's interesting. It's actually an interesting addition, and again, if when you look at a lot of like current 93's output, like they do that a lot, where they'll make alternative versions of like their main albums and kind of like give it its own like existence and kind of coincide it with a lot of stuff. Like I really kind of find it interesting, like how they can just be this prolific and just think about things that like even if like Crooked Crosses for a Nodding God was just like the drafts of like what this would eventually be, it's still interesting to see like the process of like if this is like were the first takes of like what they wanted Swastikas For Noddy to be. And also I keep saying it's called Swastikas For Noddy, which is it's also that is a version of the name, but it was also I think it was originally called Swastikas For Gotti, or I think they actually like switched Noddy for Gotti because like the people who created like the people who created the Noddy cartoon character were not pretty happy about having their characters' names attached to something that has swastikas in it, so which is pretty understandable. That's pretty understandable. So, yeah, there are vinyls I'm aware of where the word naughty is actually replaced with Gotti, and yeah, it's really interesting. Look in here, got a David Tibet, some purple fields with the crucifix, chilling with Jesus, and so that's the vinyl is actually purple, which I find it's pretty cool. And I like the text on here. Again, like just even looking at the text, it just makes me like just realize like there's a lot of humor in David Tibet's artwork because it's just so kiddish. Like it's so kiddish how like he has like all the sides and like the texts are just like they're like something you see at a kid's birthday party. And then Crooked Crosses for Nodding God. This is green vinyl. So sorry. The thing on my camera is like backwards, so like when I'm supposed to be going this way, I'm actually going the other way, so I'm getting used to recording myself, but hold up. Gander at that. B-side. Crooked Crosses for a Nodding God. And yeah. Current 93. One of my favorite albums from them. One of my favorite albums of all time, definitely. I have so many favorite albums of all time, honestly. I'm gonna get to a point where I'm like, I don't even think I can give you a list. I mean, not a list, but I don't think I can like number. I don't think I can have a top 5 because so much music has affected me. But this is definitely up there. Maybe somewhere in like the 10 spot, but I'm not sure. When it comes, if I were to like if I was only to rank it when it comes to other like neo folk music, this is definitely top 5 when it comes to like things that I like that are neo folk. But on an overall scale, like this is definitely up there when it comes to an album that has definitely impacted me the most. And again, like I said, even though Dog's Blood Rising was impacted me definitely more than this album, I would have to say, as like I've gotten more in tune with their music and like I've listened to it enough to decide like what I feel like suits me the most. Like this is something I'm gonna be putting on a little bit more common than Dog's Blood Rising or Nature Unveiled or any of their earlier stuff. But because I feel like this, you know, it's easier to listen to. It's much more. It's still weird, but you can at least like kind of delve into it a little bit better than, you know, their ambient stuff. So yeah, but overall, my last tidbits, you know, Swastikas For Noddy definitely well, this was my first Current 93 vinyl. Yeah, when it comes to like all my vinyls, I definitely have some albums I want to review that I do have vinyls of, so it's gonna be nice to be able to just like kind of, you know, do a little vinyl collection showing, probably be part of the vinyl community a lot, because I haven't really bought a vinyl in a while, but definitely want to get back into it. But Swastikas For Noddy, Current 93, really good album if you really want to get into some weird culty, you know, Charles Manson-esque neo-folk type of sounds. It's fun. You know, if you want to have a sonic experience or you feel like the movie Midsummer would be like, hey, check this album out. I'm Trey Bell, and I am out. Peace.
There's the odor of essence, and I double in pain as I flake through the past, arrayed on my mind in the room where a bed is. As I gripped in a bag, I'm gripping a hand.